And I'm going to ask you to breathe consciously throughout and be attentive. Be gentle on yourself and open yourself to healing. I know that you are aware that, and I'll explain it, that there are times when love is mistaken for safety. And what I mean is it gets confused with keeping quiet, keeping the peace, keeping one's distance from what hurts. And in those moments, love is reduced to sentiment, a soft word, a comforting thought, a decorative idea that makes no demands and risks nothing. But the love that endures, the love that Scripture speaks of, is not sentimental, is not neutral, is not protected. It does not shield us from the pain of the world. It draws us nearer to that pain. It does not function as an escape from conflict. It becomes a commitment to stay, to speak, to act, even when it's uncomfortable or dangerous. We are seeing in real time how the world treats that kind of love. Like journalists reporting from Gaza who've been killed, not accidentally, but systematically. Dozens silenced because they insisted on telling the truth from the ground. Even as global leaders pointed to a fragile ceasefire, the killing continued. Saleh al-Jafarawi, a Palestinian humanitarian worker, was killed 2 days after the ceasefire began, and there's still been killing. Students protesting apartheid and genocide are being surveilled, suspended, arrested, not for violence, but for moral clarity. Clergy, like our own Sister Judith here today, are being dismissed, not for wrongdoing, but for faithfulness to the image of God in every Palestinian life. Activists like Greta Thunberg are being removed and discredited, not because they lack compassion, but because they refuse to compartmentalize it. Last week, Greta, after being abused by Israelis and released, she said, "If Israel, with the whole world watching, can treat a well-known white person with a Swedish passport this way, just imagine what they do to Palestinians behind closed doors." Descendants of resistance like Mandla Mandela, they're warned not to speak because their memory makes empire nervous. This past Thursday, ICE, which has become a criminal syndicate, detained Leo Martinez, a Ventura County resident and U.S. citizen, while he was exercising his right to observe ICE activity. And thankfully, Leo is now free. These are not hypotheticals. This is what love costs. And yet love persists. Last week, I named something that I want to restate here because it matters. You have no doubt paid a personal cost for holding fast to what is right. Your convictions, your clarity, your unwillingness to compromise on the dignity of the oppressed. These things have cost you status, maybe relationships, opportunities, sometimes even your safety. And yet I imagine that most of you would feel more unsafe, more soulfully disoriented if this community were not what it is, a space where truth is not a liability but a form of faithfulness. I remember back in 2024, early 2024, Robina told me how relieved she was that we did not pretend that there was no blood on our government's hands in Gaza. So I pray that we continue to be people who choose the risk of love over the comfort of compliance, a love that tells the truth, a love that remembers rightly, a love that endures. So I want to review 5 things about love. And again, I'm going to encourage you to breathe consciously. Love is patient. Love is kind. Patience in a world that rewards immediate gratification and punishes imperfection is not passivity, it is protest. It is the refusal to rush past the grief, the questions, or the work of repair. It is the act of staying with what is broken long enough to witness its healing. Kindness is also often misunderstood. It is not politeness or appeasement. It is the decision to meet the world without cruelty when cruelty is a cultural default. These are radical disciplines, and when lived out, they disrupt. Last week, Greta Thunberg said, "I'm not afraid of Israel. I'm afraid of a world that has seemingly lost all sense of humanity." When Greta chose to stand in solidarity with the people of Gaza, she did so knowing the backlash would be swift, and it was. She was silenced and dismissed from certain circles that had embraced her, because love does not calculate safety. Love does not withdraw when called upon to bear witness. Love persists, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Love is not boastful, is not proud, does not dishonor others. Love that's rooted in humility does not need to center itself. It does not need to be right in every conversation. But that does not mean it lacks conviction. It means it seeks alignment, as Margie was referencing earlier, not with applause, but with truth. This is the humility that we see in Judith. Judith, whose only offense was telling the truth with clarity and care. She was removed from her congregation in South Carolina last week because she was faithful, because she named the humanity of Palestinians. She chose alignment over approval, and for that she was punished. But Judith would have been far more wounded had she stayed silent. Silence would have been its own kind of exile. There's a humility that does not lower its voice, but raises it at the right time for the right reasons on behalf of the right people. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Love does keep a record. It keeps a record not of wrongs, but of rights. Love knows the unofficial history. Howard Zinn would tell you that love keeps a record of the people's history. Roseanne Dunbar Ortiz would tell you that love keeps a record of indigenous people's history. Michael Bronski would tell you that love keeps a record of queer history. Kim E. Nielsen would tell you that love keeps a record of disability history. And anybody from Frederick Douglass to Frantz Fanon to Nicole Hannah-Jones would tell you that love keeps a record of the history of Africans in America. Love keeps no record of wrongs, just of rights. Love remembers. Mandla Mandela, grandson of Nelson Mandela, again, speaks from that kind of memory when he declares that apartheid in Palestine is no less than what we faced in South Africa. He's tracing a lineage of violence. He reminds us that our freedom is incomplete when it is disconnected from others. Love remembers well, and it remembers without bitterness, with intention toward solidarity. Love does not rejoice in injustice, but rejoices with the truth. And this is the pivot point. If your love has no vision for justice, it is sentiment. If it cannot name injustice plainly, it is comfort, not commitment. So let's be clear. A ceasefire changes nothing about apartheid. The bombs may pause, but the blockade remains. The occupation remains, the permits, the checkpoints, the dispossession of land, the generational trauma. All of it persists beneath the silence. The killing continues. But the poet Musab Abu Toha tells us, we write so the world does not say we did not know. This past Thursday, our Palestinian friend Mazen Kumsieh wrote, the so-called ceasefire, one among dozens violated by the colonizers, is merely a desperate attempt to save apartheid Israel from the fate of apartheid South Africa. But one thing is certain, the ongoing apartheid and ethnic cleansing will continue to fuel the global intifada. And you know it, dear ones. You know it. Yes, there's a ceasefire, but genocide happened. It did not disappear. It may move off the front page if it ever were there. That forgetting is a kind of violence too. Corporate media wants you to focus on Israeli hostages and internal Palestinian conflict, but to ignore that Israel has been holding the whole nation of Palestinians hostage for generations. Thousands of children have been killed, hospitals have been bombed, whole families erased. It is the deliberate and ongoing destruction of a people, and we all have seen it. Love cannot mistake headlines for healing. As Margie mentioned, love holds its gaze. Love remembers and does not wait for permission to tell the truth. So the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to a recipient who openly aligns with Zionist ideology. It shows how Israel intimidates Norway as much as it does Arab countries. The Nobel Peace Prize has too often functioned not as a recognition of justice, but as a ceremony of self-congratulation for Western powers, a tool of moral laundering for empire. The non-Western global peoples have to be asking if Israel can exist as part of the community of countries. We all know about Western values. As Edward Said once wrote, every empire tells itself and the world that it is unlike other empires, that its mission is not to plunder and control, but to educate and liberate. You understand that Western values justified expansion by claiming to bring civilization, liberty, progress to other peoples. And if you listen to the mouthpiece, the media that is the mouthpiece of the powers, you will keep hearing that our Western values are in jeopardy. Western values are often praised as universal, but in practice, they're merely aspirational, selectively applied to white populations. There are plenty of good Western values, but they're mostly theoretical. When awards are handed out for peace that keeps system of violence intact, we're not witnessing justice. We're watching the empire praise itself for its restraint while the rubble is still warm. Love that rejoices in truth refuses that kind of validation, refuses to confuse the comfort of whiteness with the work of liberation. Love never gives up. Love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. If love were only a feeling, it would be insufficient for moments like this. But love is more than an emotion. It is infrastructure for endurance. Greta has endured, Mandla has endured, Judith is enduring still, Leo is enduring, and so are you. You are still showing up in whatever way you can, still raising your voice, still boycotting, divesting, still refusing to forget the people the news no longer mentions or never did. This is the resilience of love, not the absence of grief, but the refusal to be numbed by it. Everything else will pass away. Awards will fade. Institutions will fracture. Applause will grow silent. Sermons will be forgotten. But love endures. Love that lasts is not just about what we say, but how we stand, where we show up, what we risk, and what we refuse to look away from. Love is the universal emerging paradigm, and it will outlive every regime, every dismissal, every fear. This love, the love that holds Judith, steadies Mandela, and gives Greta the clarity to speak, and empowers Leo. This love is our strength. So may we be people who love. May we be people who love like this, ceaselessly, relentlessly. Amen.
Hmm. Just hold that silence. Let love sit in with you. Because love is a sit in. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Last week, I'm just going to tap into last week real quick because last week when we went through First Corinthians, it really stuck with me that this kind of what Kenichi said at the end. It's like this keep on keeping on. That this whole like First Corinthians 13 is not just this sentiment that you named today. It's not just this words or feelings or this like pragmatic way of loving. It's actually this deeply rooted, holy thing that transcends across spirit that cannot be named and is like very it's not a platitude. And it actually goes deeper than what these words can even describe in these um in just this little chapter in scripture. And I was like, well, what does it look like to be held to its highest place? And the keep on keeping on is like to be patient is to go, okay, what does it mean to keep on keeping on being patient? Or what does it mean to keep on keeping on being kind? It means you go into that in its furthest extent. And that pushes you into justice. It pushes you into liberation. And so this is a perfect example or a perfect next iteration of last week's and the continuation of last week. So that love, that love is a verb. Love is an action, and so this is a demonstration, especially with Leo Martinez down in Ventura. Actions this week. People showing up at No Kings this week wherever they were across the country, um, and yeah, folks like Judith and um, yeah, just folks that we have in our community here that maybe are not here today, but that are showing up and making whiteness tremble, and so that comfort, that platitude doesn't have depth, it doesn't have strength, it doesn't have the courage or the spirit to build courage. So yeah, did you have anything to add?
Just the no kings thing too is and kind of along the lines of like love not being just a sentiment, especially in times like these. Also, like what is the relationship between outrage and love?
Mm.
So I think David talked about that quite a bit, but I'd love to hear what all of you have to say about not just that point, but everything you heard.
Yeah. So how do we not the difference between outrage and love? What's the difference there?
Or anything else that you've been waiting to say.
Turn those.
Mhm.
Let's
Feel
see.
free to come off mute, or I'll kind of keep an eye out for anyone who has their hand up. Oh, it looks like Judith, Reverend Judith, do you have your hand up?
So thank you, David, for calling me out. It's almost embarrassing because I feel like it's just such a little thing compared to Greta, compared to anyone I know in Palestine. The past month has been gut-wrenching because so many people have died, you know what I mean, in such drastic situations, and they're so brave, and I can't comprehend it. I mean, I'm in this like cushy apartment. Yeah, I moved myself here, and it was pretty sobering to be fired on a Zoom call. I mean, like really? Like with secret meetings and the congregation doesn't know why or what or didn't have consent. I mean, the whole thing about it was just such a
Mm.
Trump reality show, you know, and I felt so betrayed and so angry, but that's just personal bullshit. I mean, really, like Greta showed me how someone can come out of, I even talk about this in my last talk before they fired me the next day, was like so strong, like saying things like, I can't believe that people can be this evil, you know, and keep the focus on Gaza, like stop even talking about me. Like, you know, that is just incredible courageousness, you know, and
Mm.
so yeah, I love you guys and thank you for all your love. And because of you, I feel more sane, you know. There's a part of it that just brought me to my knees. Like I believed in this community. I thought I was going to have a community, you know, and it was just so harsh that I'm still reeling from it, but it helps to be here. And I love you and thank you for what you've said, even though it feels crazy to me, which, you know, to put me in the same category as any of those people is just, you know.
If I may ask, Judith, how are you doing physically?
You know, my friend, a very old friend of mine, who used to be my music director at Unity of Port Richey in Florida, needed to get away from her construction of mold in her apartment and flew in to see me like we, you know, this weekend, just happened to be here. And so I think I'm getting really nurtured, like she was sent from God, like an angel from God.
Mm,
So I think physically I felt nauseous. I felt like somebody punched me in the gut. And
yeah.
people were calling me and texting me and saying they felt like someone stabbed their heart, punched them in the gut, you know, from the community. And, you know, I just felt, you know, bad. But she took me out walking on the beach. She took me to hug a 900-year-old oak tree yesterday. Was like the best ever. Like the energy coming out of that tree, it healed me. So thank you. I feel as good as I can feel, you know.
Well, good. I because you know the body does keep the score, and you know I was just talking with Diane about how when I get broadsided by whiteness, you know I get physically ill, and so you know we hold you in our prayers.
Thank you.
One thing I was
Michael's
thinking,
hand.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm just going to say Michael's hand's been
Oh,
up.
Oh,
okay.
thank you.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. There were just, I'm trying to lower my hand here, but I'll do that later. Um, there, as Pastor was talking, so many things he was saying, stuff that's happened this last week was popping into my head. Yeah, that's an illustration of this and this and this. And I just want to comment on a couple of them. Leo is a very humble man, and he's always about the community. He is always about the community. We have a slogan in Spanish, which I can't even remember right now, but it only the community can save the community. And that's really the living ethos of BC Defensa. But Leo said this on the news, and then he told all of us in person later. But he said all the newscasters kept saying as he was standing out in front of the federal detention center that they intended to disappear him into. He later I'll tell you about the basement that he experienced. But they asked him, "Are you afraid? Were you afraid? You were afraid?" And he said, "Honestly, no. I wasn't afraid. because he said, I knew the community was with me. And he marveled. Lene and I we couldn't go to the hospital. We couldn't go to the detention center, but the brave cadre of younger people from Defensa, they found him. I went out on our hotline right away when they drove away. They started, these are just average, everyday people. They started checking the hospitals. They immediately got on contact with our allies that watched the detention center all the time. And so Leo said, no, he said, I knew they wanted to disappear me, but the community would be there. So he demanded, they were headed straight for the detention center. He knew it. He demanded, told him that he was injured, and he was, but he demanded to be seen at the hospital. So they took him to Los Robles on the way, and he was in there, and they were going through and checking him out and stuff. And he said, and then I heard it. And the Defensa community was outside chanting on the outskirts of the hospital. And Leo said, yeah, that was love. That was love. They followed ICE to the detention center, and Leo was amazed at how fast he was released. They didn't even they released him so quickly and said, "Oh, your charges are pending. We'll let you know later what you're charged with." But it's just that community is about love. And Pastor, you talked a lot about so many universals, and this is a universal. Everybody on this screen knows this, but I just want to call attention to it. Two of the evils that undercut everything that we love are nationalism and capitalism. And both of those things, and the BC Defensa leadership, and many people in the group, Lene and I aren't quite yet, but are members of the PSL, the Party of Socialism and Liberation. And we're going to be voting as the Peace and Freedom people. A lot of Democrats are going over. But that's pretty risky for the leadership to publicly acknowledge that we're socialists, that many of us are socialists. And that I thought of that so much, David, when you were talking about and going through the principles that you just put out about love. That is love. And then just one last thing, Linnea is going to be furious at me for talking about this, but my wife is love. We have a little conflict sometimes because she is faithful about, I won't say arguing. She does it in a loving way, but she has a whole cadre of detractors of middle-aged and older females, mostly, not always, on social media that she refutes, rebuts, and calls out the truth all the time. And I say, Linnea, you're wasting your time. They're idiots. Just, come on out. Come over to do the surveillance and stuff with me. She stays at it. She's diligent. And so all the social media posts are coming up. I posted a few things about Leo because we were so happy. And I'm seeing on the likes 4 or 5 of these older conservative Republican women that are still part of the church that we were exiled from years ago. So I just thank you, Linnea. Every day I see the Corinthian love in you at the keyboard. That's all. Thanks.
Julia and Clint.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate your testimony.
Julia and Clint.
Hey, morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Pastor. I have so many thoughts, and I was thinking about Judith during the sermon, and then she shared first. So I have to say, I appreciate your humility. But when I heard, so Greta and people like her, God bless them.
Yeah.
But every single one of us has a piece of the puzzle. You know what I'm saying? We all have something. So I thought about, first of all, high five. You don't belong with those people. You know what I'm saying? Forget about how you would feel if you had stayed. you don't belong there. So it was like weeding out a beautiful flower that's being taken over in an ugly ass garden. You know what I'm saying? You needed to be planted among the people who will help you grow. We all do. Yep. So everybody has like Leo, right? Talking about Leo who was out protesting, and then they detained him. And then the community that was there, they have a role to play. The people that were watching and that, like Michael said, they found his ass. You know what I'm saying? They were doing something. Linnea, who's talking to the people online and calling them on it. Like, you want to debate? Let's debate. Let's do it. Yep. Right? Instead of your, rhetorical comments, bring it. That's what love means. That means that I'm not gonna give up on you. We're gonna continue, and I'm gonna throw my love in your face. You know what I'm saying? Because that does endure. You know what else I thought of, Reverend Judith? On that Zoom call, I'm imagining there was, I don't know, 20 people.
There were a lawyer and a CEO.
Okay. So my thought was, because there are always followers who don't have the courage to speak up, there's probably someone on that Zoom call who sees the injustice and who is following along with it. And then what you do, you make a mark on a human being and they don't forget about it. For years later, do you remember what Reverend Judith did back in 2025? Just like what Pastor Moore did when he left his church. And quite a few of you, right? Quite a few of you, you do what you have to do and you leave an impact on people when you do that with courage, Yes. Yeah, so I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that you're a part of this community and that, like, be proud of, that was what God sent you to do. You know what I'm saying? It's part of the bigger scheme of things. Part
Yeah.
of, yeah.
So there were a number of things that happened with this ministry. And just really briefly, they tried to censor me, from the get-go after recruiting me and telling me it wouldn't be a problem because I looked really carefully at the diversity of the community and that there were a lot of African American leaders in civil rights. And this particular lawyer that was on the Zoom call, I felt was an ally of mine. And the CEO person really, really strongly recruited me. So there's a lot of lessons in this for me. But what I did when I first came is I found out about a lot of financial lack of integrity and using funds for things they weren't supposed to use them for and having hidden debt. And the congregation didn't know about any of these things. So I was exposing it. At the same time, I was speaking Palestinian liberation. And so it was like a double whammy, I think. Integrity means integrity, people.
Yeah,
Right?
across the board. That's right.
Yeah. And so I was just shocked at how quickly, like, I was only there 6 weeks, like, it was so bizarre. But I can't blame the community. The community is trying to rise up and say, what did you do? But the board has the authority, and it's just 6 people out of hundreds of people. And so, yeah, it's a shock that people can make those kinds of decisions behind closed doors for an entire community. And that's what happened. And I really had no clue other than my increasing anxiety. Like, literally every day I was there for 6 weeks, I became more and more nauseous, more and more anxious, more and more restless, can't sleep, So I kind of knew something was around the, corner, but I just didn't know what. I didn't think that. I absolutely didn't. I was like staring into the Zoom screen going, I just didn't have anything to say, because it was just so shocking, especially because it was those 2 people.
Thank you for that, Judith. I'm going to pick on Linnea in just a second, but I want to respond to what you said. The moment about integrity, it makes me a little bit of the early part of Pastor's sermon today was about remembering. And it made me think of, Abraham Jacob Heschel's part to be Jewish is to remember. And I think he would even go on to say to be human is to remember. And for us to be humanity, we have to remember. And I think like for us to be human as like our individual selves, we have to remember our integrity. Like remember that we like part of being an integrous person is part of being human. Like if we go against ourselves, if we go against our other, if we go against nature, then like that's not integrity. And so I hear you like kind of really bringing home that point of like, no, remembering is so important for us to stay grounded in this moment. And I'm not sure if that stirs anything in anybody, but like, what helps people remember in moments like these? How do we ground in remembering? So that's just kind of a question that stuck with me earlier. But Linnea, what do you got?
Thanks, Matt. I don't want to take away from your question,
You're good.
but while everybody's thinking about that, I just wanted to say something about, well, how impressed Michael and I have been in a state of wonderment about how VC Defensa is defending their community. And there's just a handful of white people that are, with them. And if somebody gets in trouble, boom, they're on the phone calling the hotline. They get the volunteers out there, and people are there in 10 minutes, and they're running all over the county. And it goes on from the wee hours of the morning through the night. And these people have families, and we wonder, how are they working? And, you know, I'm applying that or trying to figure out how that could apply to a community like ours. Because we live all over the map. We live all over the globe. And it has been a tremendous benefit for all of us to have each other on Sundays only, and phone calls and cards and things like that. And it's been a psychic unity, just a kind of a virtual community, and that's wonderful. But I'm trying to think of ways where how could we, when someone is going through a crisis like Judith's, what what could we do? We can't all rush to Florida or wherever it was, the East
South
Coast,
Carolina.
South Carolina, but maybe a couple of us could come on Zoom. But you didn't even see it coming, right? But just as an example, if we let each other know when we're going to be approaching some kind of thing that's big, a David and Goliath kind of thing, just let the community know, because there is prayer, which is the most powerful thing if we can't provide our physical presence. And I feel that from Diane and Sally and David. I feel the prayers of this group a lot. And so that is the most important thing. But I don't know. These are just things I'm mulling over in my mind. So,
The first thing David asked me is, how can I pray with you and how can we support you?
right,
Literally. And I felt it just in the question.
correct. Yes.
Because I just had to, like you said, Matt, remember you. And that was it. That was the strength that I needed. And also, your prayers for me, for my guidance and direction, like that for me was what I needed in that moment, is your commitment to this spiritual way and our commitment to walking in the footsteps of Jesus and in the love of our community and in our world. And it was potent. Just getting that response from you, David, was really, really, it was powerful. It is.
And that signaled
Stop it, then.
Some of the others of us, that signaled us. I didn't know what was going on, but I could send out prayers because I knew you had a need right then.
And I don't even think you realize how important these stories of people going out and helping people like Leo minister to me and to each other, to everyone, I would guess. But really, like, just to know there are people tracking him down, like,
I
it just
know. So
makes me feel so much better about life.
absolutely. We're not helpless.
And we're not alone.
We're not alone.
Got that message from all over the world, from my friends all over the world. Like, it didn't matter. They were across the globe. Like, you are not alone. I'm here for you.
I appreciate your witness in that. There's one other example that's coming to mind this past week for me, and I forget the pastor's name, but it was in Chicago. She was she led a church service at the ICE detention facility on Broad Street, and ICE came and attacked her during the service, like while giving the sermon, dragged her away, and it was very physically violent, and did it in front of everybody, in front of the cameras, and all the things. And then she said what has been said here many times by Leo and by Greta, that if they can do this to me in during service, during a church ceremony, with the cameras rolling, imagine what they are doing to the people that ICE is picking up, that they are trying to eliminate. So yeah, it's just another account, of those types of things. And we need folks to show up at and to witness, like at picket, like being the protection areas, being at picket lines, being at job sites, being at that those forces are what fortify us. So just being a witness. And a witness is engaged. A witness is not just passive. So,
Julius has his hand up.
oh, Julius, what's up?
I see you,
Thank
Michael.
you,
Yes.
thank you. Oh, Michael's coming back around too. All right, Julius, what's up?
Yes, thank you. Another enlightening sermon from Pastor David Moore. And thank you for sharing, Reverend Ella. Thank you for sharing. It's your story is, I think, one of many that are unfolding to people that actually believe and have love for their fellow human beings all across the country and probably all across what we would call the Western world as well, people that are dissenting in terms of what's happening in Gaza. One thing that struck me in the question, Matt started out with a prompt. What is the difference between outrage and love? And I want to tie that to one of the threads that Pastor Moore discussed, which was Greta Thunberg and her experience with um, in the flotilla and the IDF and being captured. And there's a price to pay, which is what Dr. Moore has alluded to. There's a price to pay for love when you actually have love for your fellow human beings. And another question that was asked was, I think Reverend Ellen brought this up, that Thunberg said she couldn't believe that people could be um, this evil.
Yeah.
And the the amplification of that is for indigenous people on this planet, for African people on this planet, for people of Asian descent, um, for people that have been marginalized. That is not a new revelation. We understand how evil this system that has been foisted upon the world, that is based in Europe, can be to non-Europeans. The struggle has been attempting to enlighten our European friends of the banality of their actions. So this is a very key thing to understand. We are dealing with a system that is ruthless, and it will diminish, dehumanize, and destroy non-Europeans without even batting an eyelash. We see it happening in Gaza, as an example. But make no mistake, and I think Ms. Thunberg is finding this out right now, this system will heap all types of praise upon you when you're doing things that are not a threat to it. In fact, that when you're doing things that enhance its credibility. And I highlight Ms. Thunberg because when she was attacking climate change, she was all over the place with lots of praise and lots of media coverage and positive. And you would think, well, maybe she's kind of against the system because she's attacking climate change. But the system had figured out a way to make money off of climate change with carbon credits and all these financializations. But the moment she used her platform to attack the core of the system, as Africans have known it, as indigenous people have known it, as Latinos have known it, which is she's attacking settler colonialism. She's attacking European hegemony.
The front line.
She's attacking what all of that supports, which is economic domination, capitalism. And when you do that, regardless, I don't care who you are, I don't care how white you think you are, this system will bring you down, up to and including physical harm, which she got a little taste of, I'm sure, when she was in custody. So back to your question, Matt, what's the difference between outrage and love? To me, it's action. Lots of people can be outraged, but Ms. Thunberg took action. Many people were outraged over slavery, but John Brown took action.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that was said earlier was making whiteness tremble, right? Making whiteness tremble is what this is all about. We're all experiencing a temper tantrum of whiteness. Donald Trump is an avatar for that. And
Yes.
but when you make whiteness fearful, there are consequences, and that's what we're going through. But there's strength in numbers, and there's strength in community, and I'm glad I found you guys. This whiteness needs to be thrown into that hash heap of history so that we can make progress. Okay, I need our European, Euro-American brothers and sisters to refrain from identifying with slaveholders like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and identify with John Brown, identify with Thaddeus Stevens. This is not a racial thing. This is a human thing. Identify with human beings that are of European descent that demonstrated their love through action, and sometimes violent action. But it was in defense of their fellow human beings. So I don't know if folks heard the UN speech by the president of Colombia, who was calling for a global military force to intervene in Gaza. That is not just outrage, that is love. That's action. So those are just my thoughts for today.
Thank you on that. I'm in therapy wise, I'm teaching an anger management class right now, and we talk about anger management in the way of like there's anger, aggression, and then there's rage. And rage is when it becomes about control. And then I'm thinking of like outrage is like somebody trying to express themselves so they can grasp for some sort of control. Whereas love is about action and kind of pressing into it more. So thank you for that today.
And Sayuri.
Sayuri.
Mm-hmm.
And then is Michael's hand still up also?
Yeah, it's still a bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Sayuri.
No, it's actually Kenichi.
It's actually me. Well,
Oh,
you know,
Kenichi.
I'll try to be to the point. as Julius was talking about your question about what is outrage, what is love, it just brought to my, I'm reminded of the amazing resiliency of the Palestinians. Here is a brief respite from drones. I mean, from what they have experienced prior, even though the killing is continuing, no doubt. They went back. Many of them took a trip back up north where they're from, northern Gaza. And they knew their homes were gone.
Yeah.
But they were determined to reestablish their life there. So in view of what we're talking, may we interpret this as their love for humanity? I mean, to the rest of us, the world, as we are watching this, it's their way of sharing their love, if you will, because their bodies are remembering, and they're returning to their roots. They are the indigenous people, right? They are one of the indigenous inhabitants, as opposed to the Euro-white illegal settlers there. So that's one thing. I mean, it's amazing. Going back with all the risk, with everything that's uncertain, they went back. And then I also think about the Lebanese journalists that are stationed in southern border, where they're not leaving either. They're reporting from there. I don't know if you saw some of the most recent the bombs that this psychopathological regime is dropping. It's unbelievable. They're recording it, and they are gathering stories, but they are staying there. Yes, there's a lot about, and they're saying, we are part of the resistance. We ain't going nowhere. And so, and they are really encouraged for the axis of resistance. That is, right now they're regrouping and so forth. And then this was also shown in the Boy Scouts that assembled in that arena. I mean, you should have seen the number that came out. And then Julius was saying, sometimes this action that you take, and this is where I am genuinely, from an ethical perspective, this is just me. I'm not asking for any solutions or any answers. Jesus is teaching about nonviolence. But then here, those who are taking action, those who are expressing love by remembering, by gathering, by remaining, they're taking some violent actions against these illegal settlers. And I find myself cheering and rooting for them and saying, I support you. And so anyway, I just wanted to kind of get that out of my chest, because this is a deep-rooted wrestling of my soul right now as a follower of Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, you heard the song that Aretha sang earlier, right? When we played that. Well, thank you, Matt and Sarah, for getting the ball rolling. Oh yeah, Michael.
I just want a chance to piggyback on everything, something that undergirds everything that Reverend Judith was talking to us about. But quickly first, I just want to shout out to Julius. I think I'm speaking for everybody here. We are so thrilled that you are part of this community now, and you have every week just enriched us with more and more insight. So thanks, and we're looking for you here every time. Okay.
Thank you, and I love you, Michael, and I love all of you. You have enriched my life immeasurably.
Isn't that the truth, that this is a community, and we all pollinate the trees that bring us together? I know. Just real quickly, this underlying concept that's so true when you were speaking of love is a principle. Clint and I have talked about this. I'm sure there are a lot of people on here who have more than just a little bit of an acquaintance with the 12-step programs and the value that they bring people back to life. One of those fundamental concepts I talked about before, attraction versus promotion. You know, in authentic love, people are attracted to it. We don't need to go out and do the evangelical witnessing or whatever, but the authenticity of real love, like this community has, is an attraction, and I just want to say that. And then just two other quick things along that line. I think people are so hungry for it, and Judith, you alluded to this, but my son-in-law sent me last night from New York City. It's I guess a pretty prominent podcast. I forgot the name of the podcast, but a New York City really well subscribed to podcast was calling attention on Friday to Leo Martinez and Defensa all over New York City. And so, you know, the community does save the community, and maybe it saves the metropolis too. And then just something that just keeps popping up. Linnea and I, every time we get around people in the community, they keep saying stuff about white people. And you know, early on, Linnea and I realized white privilege is horrible, and it's caused so much suffering around the world, actually, and especially in America. But early on, I read something that's just everybody here models it, but people who have white privilege have an obligation to leverage our white privilege on behalf of those people that are dominated under it. So that's all. Thanks. I love you guys.
We love you, Michael. And again, thank you, Matt and Sarah, for getting the ball rolling. And Bob's going to lead us in communion. And just before he does, for everybody who's here now, I'm going to ask you to take just a few seconds, put your hands over your heart, and let these hands be our collective hands. But, you know, we have to heal ourselves when there are situations that are trying to immobilize us and injure us. So let's receive healing and be restored. Yeah. I hope you can feel God's presence and our presence together in God, loving us and healing us. Thank you. Bob?
Okay, so get your elements ready, whatever you're going to use today to take communion with us. I thought today, let's think about our communion as a nonviolent act of protest, and think about the original setting. You know, John the Baptist is killed by the state. He's executed unrighteously, and for Jesus, that becomes the signal for him to move toward Jerusalem. And on his way toward Jerusalem, you know, incredible things happen. There's the transfiguration, but also Jesus keeps coming back to this theme of the kingdom of God, of the righteous reign of God, and at the same time, he's talking about his death. And so as they get close to that place where Jesus himself is going to non-violently bring the kingdom of God, bring the righteous reign of God into effect, he takes these people aside at a Passover and transforms that meeting. You know, he gives them the bread. He said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And then he says, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me." And he's calling them, he's calling us all, you know, who have followed him through the centuries, to celebrate the righteous reign of God in this non-violent, loving, active way that he gave to us. So as we take it together today, it is our nonviolent act of protest against the age, protest against the empire. It is our act of solidarity, our solidarity with one another, with, billions of people who are taking the same thing today, many of them oppressed, many of them under the thumb of empire. And it is our act of rebellion, our act of loving rebellion. And so I think Paul kind of alludes to that when he talks about it, because after quoting Jesus, he then says, "For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." So, Father, we thank you. God, we thank you for Jesus. We ask you to continue to strengthen us to be nonviolent, loving, active people, not people of outrage, but people of love. So take as you will.
This is talking to a button.